Today, you can make the argument on SEC versus Big Ten, but there was a certain time where there was no doubt, no question which conference in college football was head and shoulders above everyone else. The SEC in the late 2000s to early 2010s, specifically from 2006 to 2012, had college football in a chokehold. The national champions from 2006 to 2012 were all from the SEC. That is 7 national championships in a row. A combination of dominance, elite recruiting, legendary coaching, and maybe a little bit of luck propelled 4 programs out of the conference to the mountaintop that other programs could not replicate for years to come. Let's take a look back at just how these 7 teams overcame adversity, took the college football world by storm, and made history that their fans will remember for the rest of their lives. Gainesville, Florida. The year is 2006, and second-year head coach Urban Meyer has instilled a culture of militaristic toughness and discipline. The Gators went 9-3 the year before, and they've got some returning veteran leaders coming back. Linebacker Brandon Seiler was back, quarterback Chris Leak was back, and wide receiver Dallas Baker was back. But the biggest story in Gainesville going into 2006 was the signing of the #1 quarterback in the high school recruiting cycle. The guy hasn't even played a snap in college yet, but every Gator fan knew his name, Tim Tebow. Chris Leak would be the starter, as he was a 3-year starter and had a really solid 2005 season. But Florida made sure to draw up packages for Tebow. They were going to make sure this guy saw the field. There were high expectations going into the season for Florida. Preseason rankings had them at number 7, and they were expected to make some noise due to how much experience the roster had. They killed 2 nobodies to start the season, but then they went into Knoxville to play number 13 Tennessee. This was a crazy game. After a big-time Tebow 4th down conversion, Leak is going to find Baker, he's going to score, and Florida takes the lead. Defense gets a stop on the next possession, and Florida gets a big-time early season win. Now at 5-0, Florida is hosting number 9 LSU, and this was Tebow's coming out party in 2006. 3 total touchdowns for the freshman, including the goal line jump pass. Like I said, Florida was not going to waste this guy just because he was a freshman. And also a really good performance by the Florida defense, just completely shutting down Jamarcus Russell. They picked him off 3 times, and Florida just absolutely rolled in the second half. The Gators continue to build their case that they are an elite team. Ranked number 2 going into number 11, Auburn. Florida up 17-11 at the half, but they're going to have a punt blocked in their own territory. That's going to be a touchdown, and the momentum for the rest of this game was all going to be for the Tigers. Florida only had 1 good drive in the second half, but that drive did not result in any points because of this butchered pass by Chris Leak. A late pick by Leak sets up a chip shot Auburn field goal, and it is not looking good for the Gators. Florida runs a hook and lateral in hopes of a miracle, but it is not going to work. It's going to be a fumble, return for a touchdown, and Florida is going to fall to Auburn. They drop to 6-1, and they cannot lose another game if they want to make the national championship. Florida bounces back the next 2 games against Georgia and Vanderbilt. Great performances from the defense. And how about this defense all year? Florida prioritized speed over size on defense in 2006. Defensive coordinator Charlie Strong rattled teams with aggressive sets. Heavy blitzing. Like I said, this Gator defense was fast. Jarvis Moss and Derek Harvey off the edge were elite pass rushers. Seiler was excellent at stopping the run and blitzing, and they were so good at disguising blitzes in these Charlie Strong schemes, it always threw teams off. And I can't talk about this defense without bringing up Reggie Nelson. Probably the best safety in the country in 2006, first-team All-American, had elite range for a safety, led the team in interceptions, and this 2006 season is what got him drafted in the first round. Coming off 2 wins to bounce back after the Auburn loss, Florida's got none other than the Gator legend himself, the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, coming into the Swamp now as the Gamecocks head coach. This was a game Urban Meyer told himself he simply could not lose. Late in the game, down 16-10, Tebow is going to take this one up the middle and score to take the lead. South Carolina drives down the field and sets up a potential game-winning field goal to end Florida's season. From 48 yards out, the kick is up, and it is blocked by Jarvis Moss. And the Gators survive, and their national championship hopes are still alive. They end up beating Florida State in Tallahassee thanks to this beautiful connection. Chris Leak to Dallas Baker in the 4th quarter. And the Gators finish the regular season 11-1. And they will face 10-2 Arkansas, led by Darren McFadden in the SEC championship. But first, it's time for some BCS chaos. Going into this game, Ohio State was number 1 at 11-1. There was no Big Ten championship, so they were in the national championship regardless. USC was ranked number 2 at 10-1. They were the team in Florida's way at number 2, but they had 1 more game left. They had to play unranked UCLA. Michigan was number 3, just coming off of a loss to Ohio State. And the Gators sat at number 4, but it was presumed that Florida would jump Michigan if they beat Arkansas Arkansas, but probably would not jump USC if the Trojans won. The Gators came out hot in the SEC championship. Chris Leak was in his bag, and the defense was shutting down the Arkansas run game. And while Florida was handling business, the impossible happened. Number 2 USC was upset by unranked UCLA. But it seemed as if Florida lost focus coming out of the half because they were celebrating the UCLA win too much. A sloppy possession on defense and then a bonehead shovel pass by Leak that results in a pick 6. Arkansas leads. But in one of the gutsiest calls in the history of college football, on 4th and 10 at his own 15, Urban Meyer calls a fake punt, a reverse to Jamel Cornelius, and it is a first down. This leads to another punt on the same possession that is muffed by Arkansas and picked up for a Gator touchdown. To start the fourth quarter, a handoff to Percy Harvin and say goodbye. This dude literally had NFL speed as a freshman. He's going to take this all the way, and Florida leads by 10. After an Arkansas touchdown, Tebow on a reverse to Andre Caldwell delivers it to Tate Casey, touchdown. To put the nail in the coffin, Ryan Smith is going to haul in a pick in the end zone, and the Florida Gators are SEC champions. They're headed to the national championship to take on Ohio State. Get ready for one of the biggest beatdowns in national championship history. After the Buckeyes ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, it was literally all Gators. Florida scored 3 touchdowns in a row after the kick return touchdown, and they did not let Heisman winner Ohio State quarterback Troy Smith do anything. This dude had no idea what to do against this fast Gator defense. He was rattled from the start to the finish. Florida held him to just 35 yards through the air, only completing 4 out of 14 of his passes. Ohio State finished the game with 82 total yards of offense, just absolutely shut down by the Gators. Chris Leak had a really efficient game, 25 for 36 for 213 yards and a touchdown. Great way to go out for the veteran quarterback. Offensive coordinator Dan Mullen was absolutely in his bag. Florida did whatever they wanted to on offense. And with a final score of 41-14, the Florida Gators were 2006 national champions. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The year is 2007, and say what you want about Les Miles, but this man could recruit. Going into his 3rd year at LSU, he stacked up 2 11-win seasons and some damn good recruiting classes. The state of Louisiana was almost untouchable for teams besides LSU in recruiting. Going into 2007, LSU started off ranked number 2 thanks to being one of the most talented and experienced rosters in the country. Glenn Dorsey was a beast up front, projected to be a top 10 pick in the draft. Ollie Highsmith, that linebacker, was coming off a good year in 2006. And Matt Flynn, he would be the starter at quarterback as a 5th year. He was a backup his whole time at LSU, 2 years to future number 1 overall pick Jamarcus Russell, but he got some playing time, including starting in the 2005 Chick-fil-A Bowl, where he led LSU to a 40-3 win over Miami. He was trusted in the locker room and was also a great leader. And similar to Florida's Chris Leak, Tim Tebow dynamic, LSU also had a dual quarterback system. Ryan Perrilloux was another quarterback the Tigers used from time to time. The packages drawn out for him were mainly for his legs, but he could hurt you with his arm, make no mistake about it. And calling the defense in 2007 for LSU was the defensive mastermind Bo Pelini. LSU proved extremely fast that the hype was real. They outscored their first 3 opponents 137-7. That is insane. And one of those wins was against number 9 Virginia Tech. Now here's another thing about Les Miles. This guy was absolutely out of his mind in a good way. Like this bizarre fake field goal against South Carolina, this dude would sometimes throw the rules of football out of the window and draw up some of the craziest stuff you've ever seen. And against Florida, he went for it on 4th down 4 times in the 4th quarter and got it every time. And right here, that's Big Jacob Hester punching it into the end zone to give LSU the win. Huge win against the defending national champions. But the next week, LSU falls to number 17 Kentucky in 3 overtimes. But take this loss with a grain of salt, because the 2007 college football season was chaos from start to finish. The number 1 team lost 5 times and the number 2 team lost 6 times, combining for 11 total losses from the top 2 teams in 2007. That's why 2007 was nicknamed the year of the upset. But the next week, Les Miles, the Mad Hatter, strikes again. As the clock's winding down against Auburn, instead of playing clock and going for the field goal, he just goes for the end zone. Because why the hell not? It somehow paid off, and Matt Flynn connected with Demetrius Byrd, and this was probably the loudest moment in the history of Death Valley. 2 weeks later, LSU goes into Tuscaloosa to face former head coach Nick Saban. The first Les Miles versus Nick Saban game was a classic. Late in the 4th quarter, Matt Flynn leads a poised, clutch, game-tying touchdown drive. Next drive for Alabama, Alabama, LSU is going to strip John Parker Wilson and get the ball inside the 5. When you're at the goal line, just give the ball to Jacob Hester, man. It's automatic. LSU is going to find a way to win it in Tuscaloosa, get to 8-1, and national championship hopes are brewing in Louisiana. But the 2007 curse was not over for LSU. Unranked Arkansas comes into Death Valley on the final game of the regular season, and once again, LSU loses a game in 3 overtimes while ranked number 1. The epitome of brutality. One of the most dangerous big threes in college football history, Felix Jones, Darren McFadden, and Peyton Hillis, ran all over LSU's defense. They were helpless. LSU finishes the regular season at 10-2. Ending it with a loss at home to an unranked rival while ranked number 1. Let's go over the BCS standings going into Conference Championship Week. At number 1 is Missouri. They finished the regular season 11-1, and they are set to play number 9 Oklahoma in the Big 12 Championship. At number 2, West Virginia. They were set to play unranked Pitt at home. If both of these teams won, this would be the national championship. At number 3, Ohio State. They finished the regular season 11-1. And just like last year, there was no Big Ten championship at the time, so they did not have a game. And then at number 4, Georgia, finishing the regular season at 10-2. But they did not win the SEC East, so they did not have a game either. Number 5 was Kansas, finishing the regular season at 11-1. No Big 12 championship for them. And at number 6, the same team that LSU dismantled, Virginia Tech, finishing the season at 10-2. They will face Boston College in the ACC championship. And at number 7, LSU, they dropped 6 spots after the loss to Arkansas. It is going to take some insane stuff for LSU to get to that number 2 spot and play for a national championship. SEC championship against Tennessee. Matt Flynn injured. Perilou gets the start. And he had a solid game, 243 yards through the air. In the fourth quarter, LSU down by 1. That is picked off. Jonathan Zenon. Touchdown, Tigers. That will end up being enough to win the SEC. Domino number 1 has fallen. Do you believe in miracles, Baton Rouge? Well, I have good news. The 2007 chaos was not over. Number 1, Missouri fell to Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship, and number 2, West Virginia was upset by Pitt. Against all odds, LSU has shot up to number 2 and will face number 1 Ohio State in the national championship. And to put the cherry on top, they were playing in their own backyard, the New Orleans Superdome. Ohio State jumps off to a 10-0 lead, but just like last year, they fall apart after a hot start. And this collapse from Ohio State might have been worse than the one against Florida last year. LSU scored 31 unanswered points. This was a great matchup for LSU. Ohio State just did not have the speed and athleticism that LSU had. And how about Matt Flynn, man? 4 touchdowns for the 5th-year senior in his final game. What a night. LSU's defensive line dominated Ohio State's offensive line. The secondary shut down the receivers. And amidst all the 2007 chaos, the LSU Tigers were national champions. And we are back in Gainesville, Florida. It is 2008, and coming off of a Tim Tebow Heisman in 2007, and a loaded roster of talent and experience with guys like Brandon Spikes and Percy Harvin, the Gators were one of the most talked about and hyped up teams going into 2008. Urban Meyer was still at the helm. He was seeking his 2nd national championship in 3 years for the Gators. Great first 3 weeks of the season for Florida. Started off 3-0 with 2 blowout wins over 2 rivals, Miami and Tennessee. But then unranked Ole Miss came into the swamp. This was a day where Ole Miss played its best game and Florida played its worst game. Late in the 4th, the Gators find themselves down 31-24, and Percy Harvin is going to score what looks like a game-tying touchdown, but instead the extra point is blocked and Ole Miss keeps the lead. Florida gets the ball back, and on 4th and 1, Tebow is stuffed, and Ole Miss is going to upset Florida. And the Gators most likely cannot lose another game. I could sit here and tell you how devastated, heartbroken, and pissed off Florida was after this loss, but I'll let Tim Tebow do it instead.
I'm sorry. Extremely sorry. You know, we were hoping for an undefeated season. That was my goal. Something Florida's never done here. But I promise you one thing. A lot of good will come out of this. You have never seen any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season, and you never see someone push the rest of the team as hard as I will push everybody the rest of the season. And you never see a team play harder than we will the rest of this season. God bless.
And just like that, the team culture had completely changed. The team knew they were not all the way bought in, unified, and giving 110%. They were very complacent given the preseason hype, the media attention, and the praise they were shown on campus. But the loss and the speech were two of the biggest simultaneous wake-up calls in not only college football history, but in sports history. 2 weeks after the Ole Miss upset, the number 3 ranked defending champs came into the swamp, and it was an absolute dismantling. Florida came out fast, efficient, focused, and with a point to prove to the country that they are done with the half-ass effort and entitlement. They're out for blood, and they're going to practice and play like it every single day for the rest of the season. Everything that Tebow said came to life this night in Gainesville. With a final score of 51-21 over number 3 LSU, this was the beginning of one of the most dominant stretches in the history of college football. Florida just went on an absolute tear. They looked unbeatable. Defensively, just like in 06, the Gator defense was fast and ridiculously loaded with talent. Brandon Spikes was the leader at middle linebacker. He played the role that Brandon Seiler played in 06 as the vocal leader of the defense, basically the Tebow of the defense. Jermaine Cunningham and Carlos Dunlap off the edge were pretty much unblockable. Joe Hayden and Major Wright in the secondary shut down top-level SEC receivers. All in all, making up a defensive unit that shut down every single team they played. Offensively, Tebow and company could not be stopped. So many weapons in this offense, man. We know how good Tebow was. You couldn't tackle him. He was lethal in the option game. He could get the ball downfield to his playmakers, and honestly should have won the Heisman again. Percy Harvin had NFL-level speed as a freshman, so you can imagine how fast he was by the time he was a junior. It didn't matter if he was playing running back or receiver, he was making plays. Chris Rainey and Jeff Demps running the ball, Lewis Murphy deep down the field, and the Pouncey twins up front. The Gator offense just wasn't fair. Florida finished the regular season 11-1, dismantling everybody. And for a spot in the national championship, Florida traveled to Atlanta to take on number 1 Alabama in the SEC championship. This was Nick Saban's second year at Alabama. He had a young squad, but they were good and they knew how to win. And the Gators would be without Percy Harvin. He suffered a sprained ankle in the last game of the regular season against FSU. This game was a banger, down 20-17 in the fourth quarter. Tebow's gonna pitch it to Demps for the go-ahead touchdown. Alabama looking to respond, but Jermaine Cunningham is not having it. Next possession, Tebow to the right side. That's a dime to Lewis Murphy. 3rd and goal, Tebow's gonna put it right on the money to Riley Cooper, and the Gators lead 31-20. That's gonna be the dagger, and this should have been Tebow's Heisman moment, man. Led 2 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter against one of the best defenses in the country, and on top of what he's done this entire season, this Heisman should have been Tebow's. The Gators are SEC champions, and they will take on number 1 Oklahoma in Miami for the national championship. Oklahoma's quarterback Sam Bradford just barely won the Heisman over Tebow. This was going to be a fun one. First possession of the game, Bradford in the pocket. He's going to take a shot downfield, and Major Wright lays the boom. Absolutely took his head off. That is how you set the tone. It was a physical first half. Both defenses came to play. Tied 7-7 going into halftime. Tebow had something to say in the locker room.
Let's go, get in here. Get in here right now. Get in here. Hey, we got 30 minutes for the rest of our lives. 30 minutes for the rest of our lives. That's our bad in the first half. It ain't happening. We get the ball. I promise you one thing. We're going to hit somebody, and we're taking downfield for a touchdown. I guarantee you that.
Guarantee.
Look at me. Look at me.
Let's go.
We got 30 minutes.
Let's go.
For the rest of our lives.
For the rest of our lives.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
Man, if that doesn't get you fired up, I have no idea what will. 3rd and goal at the 2. Harvin out of the Wildcat. He's going to give Florida the lead. Tie game early in the 4th. Handoff to Harvin, and look at that speed. He's in the open field. Across the 50, down the sideline, and he's going to get inside the 30. 28-yard field goal gives the Gators the lead. Bradford looking to make something happen, and that is somehow intercepted by Ahmad Black. On 3rd and 12, Tebow rolls, looking to make a play. He's going to connect with Cooper for a first down. At the goal line, Tebow, the jump pass to David Nelson. That's the dagger. And for the second time in 3 years, the Florida Gators are national champions. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The year is 2009, and Nick Saban, entering his 3rd season at Alabama, came close the season before and winning his 2nd national championship, and his first at Alabama. Coming into 2009, Alabama had some solid upperclassmen veterans on this team. Rolando McClain at linebacker and Javier Arenas in the secondary. But the true talent and star power came from Nick Saban's loaded 2008 recruiting class. Julio Jones, Dante Hightower, Courtney Upshaw, Marcel Darius, Mark Ingram, Mark Barron, my God! Greg McElroy would get the nod at starting quarterback, a senior who backed up John Parker Wilson for 3 years. Alabama started the season in Atlanta against number 7 Virginia Tech. 268 yards on the ground for the Tide. Mark Ingram ran for 150, and Alabama dominated both lines of scrimmage. Alabama averaged 6 yards per carry, and Virginia Tech averaged 2 yards per carry. Alabama won 34-24, and little did they know, this would be its worst defensive performance for a long time. Over the next 6 games, defensive coordinator Kirby Smart's unit only gave up 9 points per game. It was pretty much impossible to run the ball against this defense. McClain solidified himself as one of the best linebackers in the country. Saban and Smart's player development really showed this year because the sophomores from the 08 recruiting class were playing like 5th-year seniors. Barron, Upshaw, and Darius were all playing at a high level. Offensively, Mark Ingram was going insane. 905 yards on the ground through 7 games. There may or may not be a little bit of Heisman chatter going around. Third Saturday in October, number 1, 7-0 Alabama hosted Tennessee in a really ugly game. Bama couldn't do much offensively, but the defense played an incredible game against a high-scoring Tennessee offense. After a Tennessee touchdown with a little over a minute to play, they're going to need an onside kick. Bama can ice the game with a recovery right here, but instead it is going to be recovered by Tennessee. A field goal to win the game, and it is blocked by Terrence Cody, his 2nd of the game. And Alabama is going to survive a scare against Tennessee. Absolute madness in Tuscaloosa. Alabama caught a bye week after Tennessee, but in came the 9th-ranked LSU Tigers into Bryant-Denny. In another low-scoring defensive affair, Alabama trails 15-13 in the 4th, and there goes Julio Jones. His breakaway speed is ridiculous. He made one guy miss, and that's all he needed. All the way in the end zone, and Alabama leads. Now, I cannot talk about this game without bringing up one of the most controversial moments in college football history. This looks like an interception by Patrick Peterson on Greg McElroy, but it is ruled incomplete. And to give you guys my take on it, I honestly have no idea if this is an interception or an incompletion. You guys make the call, but Alabama is going to kick a last field goal to put the game away, and the Tide remain undefeated. Alabama continued to dominate up until the Iron Bowl at Jordan-Hare, where an average Auburn team came out swinging. Down 21-20 late in the 4th, Greg McElroy leads one of the clutchest drives in the history of the Iron Bowl. He went 7 of 8 for 62 yards and connected with Roy Upchurch in the end zone for the game-winning touchdown, and Alabama survives another scare. Next up for the Crimson Tide was the rematch the entire country had anticipated all season long. Number 1 Florida versus number 2 Alabama in the SEC Championship, and this year was a completely different story. Alabama ran all over Florida, 251 total rushing yards. McElroy tallied up 249 yards, and Florida just could not capitalize on opportunities. Tebow could not deliver down the stretch, and Alabama was the better team in every aspect. With a final score of 32-13, Alabama gets revenge on Florida and wins the SEC. And Mark Ingram becomes the first Alabama player in school history to win the Heisman Trophy. In the national championship, Alabama would play number 2 Texas in Pasadena, and it was a disastrous start for the Longhorns. On their first possession of the game, the Heisman finalist quarterback Colt McCoy took a hit in the wrong spot. A nerve was pinched that took feeling away from his right arm. He was done for the game, and true freshman Garrett Gilbert would play the rest of the game. Bama up 7-6 in the second quarter, and Richardson up the middle. He's going to go all the way, and Alabama's up 14-6. Right before the half, Marcel Darius is just going to take the ball away from Garrett Gilbert, and he's going to score. Bama up 24-6 at the half. Texas made great adjustments to stop Alabama's run game in the second half. And in the middle of that, Garrett Gilbert is going to start capitalizing on drives, and what do you know? It's a 3-point game. On a drive to tie or take the lead in the 4th quarter, Gilbert is stripped by Eric Anders. The defense that has been so good all season makes its biggest stop of the year, and Mark Ingram is going to punch it in for the dagger. After one more Trent Richardson touchdown for the first time since 1992, the Alabama Crimson Tide are national champions. Auburn, Alabama. The year is 2010, but our story actually begins in 2009 at Blinn College in Texas. A 6'6", 250-pound superhuman who just got kicked out of Florida for stealing a laptop is bullying the entirety of JUCO effortlessly. It would not be long where that man would have the entire country knowing his name. Cam Newton decided that Auburn, a place that had 24 seniors returning in 2010, and a fast, high-tempo Gus Malzahn offense was where he would fit in best at. Second-year head coach Gene Chizik, coming off an 8-5 season in year one at Auburn, was still looking to prove himself as a head coach. He didn't have much success at Iowa State for 2 seasons as the head coach, but he was a really good defensive coordinator for Auburn back in the early 2000s. And my God, did he have a sleeping giant on defense. Defensive tackle Nick Fairley had shown promise in 2009, but had not yet hit his stride to make him elite. Boy, was that about to change. After starting 2-0, a trend that would follow, the 2010 Auburn team would make its first appearance. Playing Clemson at home, Auburn mounts a comeback after being down 17-0. And behind some big-time throws from Cam Newton, Auburn climbs back, and this game goes into overtime. In overtime, Clemson trying to extend the game, and the kick is no good. Auburn wins! And this would be the first of plenty Auburn comebacks throughout the season. Next game, Auburn hosting number 12 South Carolina, and this is when the entire country would know Cam Newton's name. Look at this man. He's gonna dive from the 7-yard line all the way to the end zone. This guy was not human. 5 total touchdowns for Cam, 176 yards on the ground, 158 through the air. And another comeback for Auburn. They came back down 20-7 to beat South Carolina. Cam had taken the college football world by storm. Through 7 games, he had 1,278 passing yards for 13 touchdowns, 860 rushing yards for 12 touchdowns. Auburn's biggest test of the year so far, undefeated LSU, one of the best defenses in college football. And right here, Cam's going to take this up the middle. He's going to cut right, make a man miss. He's still on his feet, makes another man miss. Look at him accelerate into the end zone. That might be a Heisman run. Cam ended up running for 217 yards, averaged 8 yards a carry against an LSU defense that was basically full of future NFL players. Tie game in the fourth quarter, and they cannot block Nick Fairley. Jefferson's going down. Auburn gets the ball back. Ontario McCaleb gets the handoff. He sees a lane. He's going to take it. There's nothing but green in front of McCaleb. He's going to go all the way for a touchdown, and Auburn takes the lead. One more stop for Auburn does it, and at 8-0, national championship hopes are brewing on the Plains. Now let's talk about the Auburn defense. They had a weakness in pass coverage, but the run defense was elite. Led by Fairley, the defensive line was full of really good veterans like Mike Blanc and Antoine Carter. Linebacker core led by Josh Bynes and Darren Bates, great at stopping the run. Everything seems to be going well for Auburn, but out of nowhere, drama regarding Cam Newton's eligibility drops. It was a lot of he said, she said, but apparently during Cam's recruitment after JUCO, Cam's dad and a Mississippi State recruiter were negotiating a price between $100,000 to $180,000, but Cam had no idea about it. The NCAA conducted an investigation and found Cam nor Auburn of any wrongdoing. He was cleared to play, and Cam went crazy against rival Georgia. 4 total touchdowns for Cam, and this was another comeback win for Auburn. They were down 21-7 at one point. This game also featured freshman running back Michael Dyer breaking Bo Jackson's freshman rushing record. At 11-0, it was Iron Bowl time, baby. Auburn traveled to Tuscaloosa to take on the defending national champions, Alabama. And Alabama got off to a rocket fire start. Did whatever they wanted to on offense and completely shut down Cam Newton. Just as Alabama's about to extend its lead, Antoine Carter does not give up on this play. He strips the ball out of Mark Ingram's hands, and this changes the game completely. Auburn scores right before halftime, and then right out the gates in the second half, Cam Newton is going to find Terrell Zachary deep, and just like that, Auburn's cut it to 10. Auburn shuts down the Alabama offense. Cam Newton scores, and all of a sudden, it is a one-possession game. Fourth quarter, down 6. Malzahn calls a ballsy 4th down pass, and Cam delivers it to Darvin Adams. 3rd and 4 inside the 10. Newton to the end zone. There's Philip Lutzenkirchen. Auburn has taken the lead. Defensively, Auburn's going to hold strong, stop Alabama's last-ditch efforts, and Auburn completes the comeback. They were down 24-0, but they did not care. One of the greatest comebacks in the history of sports. A rematch in the SEC championship against South Carolina, and this time, the game wasn't even close. Auburn absolutely dismantled South Carolina. Cam went crazy, the defense shut them down, and at 13-0, Auburn has won the SEC. They are headed to the national championship. And I'm not going to lie, after all the adversity and all the comebacks they've had this season, I think they deserve to have a blowout. Cam Newton won the Heisman, and it was not even close. It was one of the biggest Heisman margins of all time. And for the national championship in Glendale, Arizona, Auburn was set to face number 2 Oregon. The high-powered Oregon offense versus the high-powered Auburn offense was the narrative around this matchup and why it was so hyped up. But it turned out to be the opposite. It was the defenses who showed up. 0-0 at the end of the first quarter, but we were in for a wild second quarter. First touchdown of the game, Cam Newton is going to find Cody Burns. He's going to make a man miss, and he's in the end zone. Oregon responds right back. Darren Thomas is going to find LaMichael James, and he's going to walk into the end zone. But then Chip Kelly's going to dial up a fake extra point, and it somehow works. Auburn drives down to the 1-yard line, and Cam misses a wide-open Eric Smith. But then on the next play, Mike Blount tackles LaMichael James in the end zone for a safety. What is going on? The score is 11-9. That might be the goofiest score I've ever seen. Next series, Cam in the pocket. He's going to deliver it to Emory Blake down the sidelines, and Auburn's going to lead 16-11 at the half. Auburn kicks a field goal on its first drive of the second half, and the score remains 19-11 for a long time. Nick Fairley dominated Oregon. 5 tackles for loss, a sack, and honestly, the whole defense was just on. Late in the game in the fourth, Auburn trying to put the game away. Casey Matthews punches the ball out of Cam Newton's hands. 4th and 5, Oregon looking to stay alive, and Thomas connects with Davis underneath, and he's going to get all the way inside the 10. Easy touchdown for LaMichael James, but they need the 2-point conversion. To tie the game, Thomas is going to roll right, heave it to the end zone, and Jeff Mail comes down with it, and we are tied. 2 minutes left. Auburn's going to hand the ball off to freshman Michael Dyer, and no, your eyes are not deceiving you. He was not down. Michael Dyer is still running. There was no whistle, but they are definitely going to review it. Replay determined that he was not down, so Auburn's going to give it to Dyer again, and this time he's going to break loose in the end zone. Touchdown! Auburn has won the national championship. Well, hold on. Let's take a look at this one again. All right, this time he was down, but Auburn's at the half-yard line. A chip shot field goal for Wes Byram. It is good, and the Auburn Tigers are national champions. And we are back in Tuscaloosa. The year is 2011, and after a disappointing 2010 campaign that had a very talented team, Nick Saban believed the team got complacent after winning the national championship in 2009. Losing 3 games with a roster that talented was unacceptable, and Saban upped the intensity. Nick Saban was still relentless on the recruiting trail, just like we talked about earlier. The young stars from the 08 and 09 elite recruiting classes were now the leaders of the team. Well, except for the ones that got drafted in the first round. He reeled in the number 4 2010 class and the number 1 2011 class. So there would be plenty of young talent on this team. The defense was absolutely terrifying. Alabama wasted no time in 2011 showing the country that they had an all-time great defense. Just a stupid amount of elite, not even fair talent. Dante Hightower, Courtney Upshaw, Mark Barron, Dre Kirkpatrick, and some others had already been really good players in 2009. Just imagine them now, having 3+ seasons being coached by Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. Yeah, they were monsters. Nick Saban and Jim McElwain's offensive scheme was simple. Our offensive line is better, stronger, and tougher than your defensive line. So we're going to run the damn ball. Barrett Jones was the leader of the offensive line, and running the ball was Trent Richardson. A lot of Bama fans believed he would be better than Mark Ingram whenever he was the starting running back. A.J. McCarron would be the quarterback in more of a game manager role, but he could deliver some nice throws when need be. The Alabama defense quite literally shut every team down that they played. Through 8 games, Alabama only gave up 6 points per game. 6! They quite literally did everything right. They didn't miss tackles, they didn't miss assignments, they were disciplined, and they were really good schematically. Kirby Smart's sets would sometimes look like one thing pre-snap and would become something completely different post-snap. The defensive line was impossible to move, the linebackers were good at everything, run stoppage, coverage, communication, and the secondary never gave up big plays. They were locked down. The defense quite literally did not have any weak spots. They ranked number 1 in all 4 major categories. Offensively, Trent Richardson was having a stellar year. Through 8 games, he had 989 yards with 17 touchdowns. And look at this run against Ole Miss. He was making guys miss in the backfield, and he's going to turn a loss into a touchdown. Unreal. After an 8-0 start and shutting down everybody, number 1 LSU came into Tuscaloosa to face the number 2 ranked Crimson Tide. This game was insanely hyped up because LSU's level of talent was almost equal to Alabama's. This game was peak SEC hard-nosed smash-mouth football. They were out there killing each other. Honestly, Alabama was probably the better team that night, but thanks to 4 missed field goals, Alabama only scored 6 points. The game had a ton of punts. Both defenses played incredible. In overtime, Alabama attempting to take the lead, and another field goal is missed. LSU drove down the field, made a chip shot field goal, and now Alabama does not control its own destiny. We know how it was in the BCS era. If you lost, you were going to need some help. And well, they got the help they needed. The only team that stood in Alabama's way was Oklahoma State, and 2 weeks after the LSU game, Oklahoma State was upset by unranked Iowa State, and just like that, the rematch was almost certainly going to happen. Both LSU and Alabama won out, and the BCS officially put Alabama at number 2 in the final ranking to send them to New Orleans for the national championship versus LSU. And we know the saying, it's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. It's especially hard to beat the 2011 Alabama Crimson Tide twice, considering the first time you beat them, you only scored 9 points. And tonight, it was going to be complete and utter suffocation by the Tide defense. Although LSU's game plan and execution was the biggest embarrassment I've ever seen in a championship game, it may or may not have mattered what their game plan was, or hell, it may not have mattered what team even showed up to play Alabama. The 2001 Miami Hurricanes, the 2008 Florida Gators, or 2019 LSU. I don't know if anybody was going to move the ball that night in New Orleans against Alabama. They solidified themselves as a Mount Rushmore defense in college football history. A shutout in the national championship, less than 100 yards of total offense, and only allowing LSU to cross the 50-yard line once. The Alabama offense did just enough, actually made their field goals, unlike the first game. Trent Richardson scored a touchdown to put it away, and Nick Saban had won his second national championship at Alabama. In order to cement Alabama as a dynasty, Nick Saban probably needs one more title. Enter 2012, and Alabama had a ton of returners from 2011. Offensively, A.J. McCarron was back as the starting quarterback. 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen returned, and Eddie Lacy, Trent Richardson's backup, who got solid playing time in 2011 and had a pretty good season. Plenty of guys on defense returned. C.J. Mosley, Nico Johnson, Clinton Dix, and D. Milner, just to name a few. Once again, signing the number 1 class, Saban would play 2 of the talented freshmen he brought in 2012. T.J. Yeldon was a running back who could do it all and would get a good amount of carries to limit the wear and tear of Lacy in a run-heavy offense. And Amari Cooper, who as the season goes on, would become the number 1 go-to guy for McCarron. A very dangerous deep threat. Alabama started off ranked number 2, very high expectations for the Tide once again. Started the season off in Dallas against number 8 Michigan, and it was a dismantling. The message was clear. Bama was still here to dominate. Offensively, it was a very balanced run game between Lacy and Yeldon. Both got a ton of carries, and the offensive line was ridiculous. Barrett Jones, DJ Fluker, and Chance Warmack. Yes, that's 3 All-Americans on the offensive line. The defense was still ridiculously good. Back-to-back years of ranking number 1 in every major category. Mosley was really good in 2011, but took his game to another level in 2012 as the starting middle linebacker. They were just so well coached, efficient, disciplined, and so tough to move the ball against. The reputation and identity of Alabama as a program at this point had become all-time level good defenses. Having Nick Saban and Kirby Smart on the same coaching staff just was not fair. And just like last season, Alabama did not face adversity up until they played LSU. And this game was just as hard-nosed and physical as the game in Bryant-Denny last year was. And check out that stat right there. This is the first time Alabama has trailed in the 4th quarter since the 2010 Iron Bowl against Cam Newton. This was a very intense game for LSU after what happened in New Orleans. Down by 3 with a minute and a half left, McCarron is making some big-time throws with his arm. Inside the 30, McCarron's going to give it to Yeldon on a screen. He's going to get some blocks, makes a man miss, and he's into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Broken hearts across Louisiana once again. But 1 week later, Alabama would play the best player they've played since Cam Newton. Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M came into Bryant-Denny and punched them right in the mouth. An Alabama defense that has literally looked invincible the last 2 years finally looked human. It was a Heisman-winning performance from Manziel. Alabama with a chance to take the lead at the goal line, and McCarron throws an interception. And the Crimson Tide are going to fall to Texas A&M. Just like after the loss last year to LSU at home, Alabama was going to need some outside help to get into the national championship. And what do you know, they got it the very next week. Number 1 Kansas State gets obliterated by unranked Baylor, and number 2 Oregon falls to Stanford in overtime, and Alabama takes the number 2 spot. Alabama finishes the regular season at 11-1 and will face number 3 Georgia in the SEC championship, with the winner going to the national championship to face number 1 Notre Dame. And what a game this was. Both teams trading shot after shot, but with 3.5 minutes left, down 3, McCarron's gonna hit Amari Cooper in stride, and Alabama takes the lead. Georgia inside the 10 with under 10 seconds left, and what are they doing? You don't have any timeouts, you idiots! What a stupid ending to such an incredible game. I'm pretty sure this game, killed Mark Richt's soul, because he was never the same after this. But Alabama wins the SEC, and they are headed to Miami for the national championship to take on number 1 Notre Dame at 12-0 in Miami. And if you thought Florida versus Ohio State 2006 was bad, oh buddy, get ready for this. I promise I mean this in the nicest way possible. Notre Dame did not belong in this game. They just simply did not have good enough players and good enough coaches to be in this game. Alabama was the better team in quite literally every single aspect. Notre Dame pretty much quit at halftime, and as they should have. Alabama beat them like a drum. But nonetheless, a great performance by Alabama. I mean, honestly, all they had to do was just show up. Saban solidifies Bama as a dynasty and himself as an all-time great coach. 3 national championships in 4 years. They left no doubt on the field. Alabama is the 2012 national champions. Man, what a run by the SEC. From 2006 to 2012, 7 national championships in a row. I don't think that'll ever be done by another conference ever again. But that is going to do it for this video. I had an absolute blast making this. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you're a fan of one of these teams, tell me your favorite memory from the national championship season. Or hell, if you're not a fan of one of these teams, comment your take on the current state of SEC versus Big Ten right now. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.